You're listening to Haitian American Ministry Live. We broadcast on Facebook X, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. How to listen on Mixlr. Go to mixlr.com and search for Haitian American Ministry. You can also find our live show in the religion category on Mixlr during our broadcasts. Mobile apps. On the Apple App Store or Google Play Store, download the Mixlr app. Open the app, go to search, and type Haitian American Ministry to find our channel. Blessings. Thank you for listening. God bless you and your beautiful family. Mixlr's live listings display Haitian American Ministry live audio when we broadcast, so if you don't see it immediately, check back or follow the channel to be notified.
COT's base of operations is right here at thecounciloftime.com. COT has no other outlet or venue. These are other folks who will rebroadcast. Anything COT does is by the main page here at thecounciloftime.com. Good evening, everybody out there. All right, let's do a sound check and make sure you guys can hear me okay. I should be pretty loud. I keep my voice down. I think I was exposed to somebody really sick. Of course, when I'm exposed to somebody really sick, I normally get a high fever. Then it goes away. It's likely what was happening now. Since yesterday, actually. I think yesterday, last night, on air, I was running a high temperature. When I was talking to you guys, I believe it was around 102.9 or something like that. Because I was actually shivering. Now, believe it or not, fevers are not uncomfortable to me. They're quite comfortable. I know it sounds odd, but they're quite comfortable, right? I don't like being hot. So whenever I feel cold, whether it be to me. But that's it. That's the only thing that affects me is a fever. I don't get the rest of the symptoms. You know, everybody else, they get nausea, stomach stuff and all that. I don't get that, thank God. So it's about the 10th year. I'd say it's my, I'm exposed to sickness about every 10 years. And I'm good to go though. I'm good to go. I am. It was really rough. Yesterday on air. It was really rough, right? You guys didn't really notice. I noticed some of you guys were saying, oh, he sounds tired, right? That's what you thought, but it's okay. It's okay. I don't have time to stop for that stuff anyway. I'll tell you what, because I don't agree with sickness, my body has no choice but to align itself to the direction of my own spirit. How about that? How about that? Case in point. Some people call that some people look at that and they think it's, they really do think it's very odd. They're not used to seeing things like that. They're not used to people operating like that, right? But I'm going to tell you guys again. There's so many times when, yes, I understand a medical situation. And yes, I understand portions of medicine. I just don't agree with the findings, right? I don't. I need this body to serve me as I serve the Lord, period. So I don't have time for it to break down and stay broke down, right? And I also know that sickness actually builds your immune system. You guys know that? Every time you get sick, you're fortified against other contaminants that could come in there, right? But if you don't agree with your own sickness, if you don't agree with it, right, your body has no choice but to adapt. You guys do realize that your body is constantly adapting to the way you think. Do you know that? In the Bible it says, as a man thinketh, so is he, right? Now that could be, some people could think of that just merely by way of the mind, right? By way of someone's attitude or something like that. but I have applied it many times and the same results every single time. If you don't agree with your sickness, your body has no choice but to start doing what it's best at. Your body can adapt to anything. You know that? Anything. And I'll remind everybody, placebos work. How can a placebo work? Because the body knows what to do. You're actually giving instructions to your cells to do things it wouldn't normally do. Right? You know, when you're sad or depressed, your immune system begins to die instantly. Do you know that when you're angry, your immune system begins to die instantly? Do you know that? Do you know that when you're full of joy or happy, your immune system, or your cells will send out a signal to actually begin to create new immune system components and cells? Do you know that? You control your emotions based upon what you agree with. You do realize that, right? And your emotions are the language to your body. You can't speak to your body with words. It understands emotions, right? It understands emotions. That's why in the Bible it says laughter is healing to the body. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but laughter, right, is healing to the body. Why? Because when you laugh, that's also, there are underlying emotions. And when you start feeling a certain way, right, you're giving instruction to the body, hey, you're alive, so be alive, right? Be alive. Emotions are language to your body. They really are. If somebody can have you depressed and upset, your body's going to go haywire, out of whack. Totally out of whack, right? When you don't agree with your negative circumstances, when you don't agree with that, you're going to cause yourself a release of these negative emotions. And because you don't agree with that, you know, your circumstances that could, by the way, make you depressed, you're going to begin to progress towards the opposite. The opposite. And when you know what the Lord teaches us, everything he teaches, it's understanding of a few things, yes, but of this one thing that stands out of everything he teaches. He always reassures us that even in our troubles, some good is being worked out in us. Why would he do that? Why that reassurance? Because if you really think about that, when you're in a predicament and in some circumstance, and you really begin to analyze your own circumstance, you realize something. Every circumstance you undergo is like a trigger to your growth. You gain wisdom, right? You do. You gain wisdom. That wisdom is gained in very painful ways. Let's go ahead and face it. But you gain so much out of your circumstances. And the Lord gives us a reassurance to help us stay a little positive through it, because he already knows it's going to end. And when it ends, you come out on the other side with much more wisdom than you began with. And with that wisdom, should you face that same circumstance again, should you think about what the Lord told you and see what he did, as soon as it begins, you'll say, wait a minute, the Lord delivered me from this issue and that issue and that issue. The Lord told me I would have this issue in the first place, right? And here's a big one. When you're in the middle of your issue, have you noticed that you're spiritually opened? Anybody notice that? When you don't have an issue in life, when you don't have anything against you in life, you're smiling, having fun, but you learn no new spiritual thing. Does anybody? I don't. When nothing is against me and I'm enjoying life, right? I don't really learn any spiritual thing. I'm utilizing, right, the spiritual things I've gained. But when I have a problem, when it's one of those, the worse the problem is, the more spiritually opened I am. And when that happens, I can actually see the truth of the word. I think it's awesome. I have a deeper understanding of Scripture, a deeper understanding of everything that's going on. In fact, one day in my life, things had gotten so bad. Listen to me. I prayed because when I first understood this, when I first saw it, I said, my goodness, everything is opened. My understanding is opened. My hearing is sharp. My sight is sharp right in the middle of this problem. I feel close to Christ. I said, Lord, I'm not trying to be funny. This was my prayer. I said, Lord, I'm not trying to be funny, but I don't want a time that'll make me distant from you. I want this time. I want to always hear from you. I want to always have my eyes and ears opened. I do not want life handed to me. I don't want a freebie. Because I notice when that happens, I'm dead. You can lose yourself. Most people want to be happy, right? That's what the world taught you. The world taught you that silliness. Just go out in life and be happy. And people walk around saying, oh, I just want to be happy. What they don't realize is in their time of trial, there's a closeness with Christ you cannot have unless you have issues and problems in your life. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and start those issues. No, you're going to have them anyway. I'm telling you that when the world is not so favorable to you, and when you turn to Christ, because you cannot turn to the world, and you give him 100% of your attention, right? And everybody has turned their back on you. You have time with the Lord. You do. You have an intimacy with the Lord you never had before. You have understanding on a very deep level. You didn't even know existed. And you grow beyond everybody around you. You really do. And on the other side, you come out with wisdom that you can actually utilize to help people. I mean, to really help people. See, it's one thing to tell somebody, if somebody's crying and somebody just walks up and says, oh, well, everything's going to be all right. That's a lie. That's a big lie. I don't want somebody to come up and tell me everything's going to be all right. I don't want that's being pacified. As for babies, and it does not address the problem. It doesn't. No, I would rather somebody come up and discuss the issue and they say, hey, I know all about that issue. I've been through that several times. That same thing. And then proceed to tell me, hey, this helps you grow in this area of life. And that thing you can't do because you have no self-control? Once this is over, you're going to have all self-control in that area. Oh, and by the way, that problem you couldn't get rid of? The Lord will guide you down a path during this trial that will strengthen you to find area. I don't want to be pacified. I want the Lord's process upon my life. That's what I want. When I found that out, that's why you guys, nobody hears me complain. Nobody. There's not a complaint even in my bones. I don't have to hold my tongue or anything. I have no complaints. I was sick yesterday. Nobody heard. You guys didn't hear me tell you I was sick, did you? Do you know why? Because I trust the Most High. It doesn't matter if you know or not. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. Because what the Lord say? What the Lord say? The Lord has already spoken his word over my life. I know what the end result is. Right? I know what the end result is. Most people are scared of death. That's what they're scared of. Oh, this could just kill me. If I'm not on this earth, I'm with the Lord. Problem solved. Right? No big issue. But when I'm not with the Lord, I have an opportunity to serve him on the earth. How about that? How about that? Either way, I win. Either way, the victory is mine. If I choose to embrace it, the victory is mine. Either way. That's why I don't really think like the average person does. The average person thinks of in this consequential way. Like what could happen if I do this, or I might lose this, or I might lose that, or this might happen to me. I don't think that way. I trust the Lord's guidance. I trust his direction. I do. It's mankind I don't trust. Mankind experiments. They experiment their way through things. And when they find certain things, they simply enslave others by everything they find. That's the world's way. That's Satan's way. Not so with the Lord. The Lord's about freedom. No obligation. No obligation. That's why I love the Lord Jesus Christ. There is no obligation with Christ. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? The world mandates, right? They mandate things. Well, go on a vacation and enjoy yourself, and then you'll have a good time. They paint this picture in your mind. Every time people go on a vacation, it's more pressure in a vacation than it is before you went to the vacation. How many of you know that? Huh? You know how many times I've seen people on vacation and they are stressed out. And then they go back home and they have financial troubles from the vacation. They regret going on the vacation. But because the world does it, they say to themselves, well, it's okay. That was something I'm supposed to do. That's what they say. That's something I'm supposed to do. What? I don't take vacations. I don't. Do you know that? I will not take a vacation. Do you know why? Because that's something the world thought of. I don't need a vacation. No, that's not where my joy is. My joy is in exhausting myself doing something for somebody else. That's my joy. I don't need a vacation. I don't need a break. I don't need any of those things. I don't need me time. I don't need that. I need to be efficient at what I'm sent here to do. And that's something. But the world has programmed people into believing that somehow, that vacation is going to fix your issues. That this and that is going to make you just like you dreamt of being. It never works out. You get a bunch of angry people out there who are pressing a smile on their face. And then at night they go drink themselves to death, right? Why? Because all that smiling was not real. They have no real joy. The Lord's way is precious, is absolute, flawless, fits me perfectly. It's good food for me, the Lord's way is. And when it comes to issues and problems and things like that, I already know they're coming. Also know it's a time when the Lord is raising me. He's raising me. And if you look at the world lately, something's gone wrong, right? Something has gone wrong. It's kind of like at the beginning of the year when we were talking about fault lines. I was talking about that fault line in, I believe it was New Jersey and some other places. Then all of a sudden later on, and then they already knew about this. Later on in the year, they come out and say it's a new fault line in New Jersey. Really? The world keeps you occupied. What is your function in the world, by the way? Somebody answer me. A lot of people walk around, listen to me, they say, well, they're trying to kill us. Well, have they just killed you off yet? If they're trying to kill you, they're no good at what they're doing, are they? Huh? I mean, they're trying to kill you. They're no good at that. They failed. Right? What's your actual role in the world? Here's what everybody does. You ready? It's very simple. You're educated to be some type of employee, to work for someone in the world who has obeyed and agreed to keep the standards that are in the world. You grow up, you learn how to work for someone. You get a job. You get a salary or paycheck. You get your home. You can feed yourself and clothe yourself, this, that, and the other. But the job is where it's at, right? For some, it's a job. For some, it's something else. Either way, you're confined to your place in society. You're confined to a tiny portion of the earth. You're confined. And you stay in your place. And you contribute in various ways to a system of confinement. and you pay for everything, and you're confined. You were trained to be confined. And every ideology that can free you from being confined, you're taught to ridicule. You become the enforcers of ridicule for anybody who would ever seek to be free. You perpetuate the need to pay for everything. And to really reinforce that idea, riches is involved. They create a desire within people to have a lot of resources so they can buy more dirt and cow skins to put on themselves, to fill up their homes with everything. All right? They do. They do. But you're still confined. Even the rich are confined. The rich people are more confined than the poor people. Rich people can only go to designated places. Have you noticed? A rich person cannot go everywhere in the world. They can't do it. They can only go to designated places that are designated for the rich. Middle class goes to middle class places designated for the middle class. In either case, confinement is the deal. Now, what kind of a system is that? You have people that grow up, you confine them. They contribute to the cause of a big system that confines everybody. What's the end game? What's the end game? Are they really trying to kill you? No. So what's the end game? The part that Christians deny. You ready? Yes, and I'm saying this to provoke you. The Spirit. The end game is all about the Spirit. The very element that the Christians deny. The end game is spiritual. You know that thing that most people don't believe in? You know that thing that most people tiptoe around? The end game is the Spirit. Listen to me. Of all the effort in the world, in every single country, what do people end up doing? What do people end up doing? I'll tell you what they end up doing. They end up serving the needs of darkness while they figure out how to be righteous. Some people don't even choose righteousness, so they continue to serve the needs of darkness. And what are those needs? The corruption of souls. Period. Entertainment. Money. War. Freedom in the world. All of it contributes to the corruption of the soul. Period. All of it. When you become a person who separates yourself from the sin of this world, that's when you become a target. You're not a target until you separate yourself from the sin of this world. You're a target if you don't watch the same comedic shows that everybody else is watching. You're a target if you don't drink the same stuff everybody else does. You're a target if you have an ideology against what people in the world are calling freedom. See, they're free to perform abomination, to scam people all day long. They're free to have people enslaved by various substances. They're free to do all these things. And as soon as you begin to go against those things, you don't believe in them, you're targeted. If you ever start talking about angels, you're going to be ridiculed. If you ever start talking about the power of the living God in public, you're going to be ridiculed. Satan is the warden. People are being raised on this earth to be enforcers of policies of this world to everybody else. Parents have taught their children to listen to the world and no one else. By and large, parents have not taught their children to obey the living God. They taught their children to go along with the flow of whatever the world tells them to go along with. When a person began to believe outside the system, Everybody came down on that person and laughed at them and scoffed them right back into their confinement. Nobody breaks confinement. Nobody can go free. And if anybody starts to go free, that's when the entire community comes against them. Isn't that something? They don't want to kill you. You're already confined. You're not going anywhere. You're stuck like Chuck. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. Living inside of an illusion. They have convinced you by speech that you're free. They show you things on... You know why people watch television and movies so much? It's the only time they can escape their confinement by way of their own imagination. They watch a movie and for a moment, they're on a ship. They're not in their homes. For a moment, they're in a different land that does not have so much political vices that you can't talk about anything. They're in a different place altogether. Sci-fi is so popular because you're not dealing with elements of this world. People drink a lot and they like to party and go to bars to escape their own confinement. If home was happy, no one would drink. But it's not, and people need a way of escape. That's why those philosophers at Rome invented gladiators, to allow people to exercise those hidden desires that they have, to allow them to escape an avenue to vent their anger. So the whole thing doesn't blow up. And they have subdued you without drugs. They have. They pacify you with entertainment. So long as you have entertainment, you will stay put. If you ever turn all entertainment off for a week, you start getting antsy. You know what makes you sit still for an hour? Entertainment. Pop on a movie and all of a sudden you have an escape. And if you don't think it works, then you haven't been living on earth. You've not been living on earth. If you don't believe entertainment works, you're incredibly blind. The entertainment industry draws in most of the money in this world. They can twist the numbers all they want. We know what the real deal is. What is the world after? You're already confined. Your soul. Your soul. They don't want to kill you. They want to own your soul. They're after your soul. They want you corrupted so that you will not turn to the Most High. They want you locked into witchcraft so that you will not turn to the Most High. They want you to feel guilty. God does not give us guilt. By way of the Holy Spirit, we have conviction, not guilt. Conviction is a realization. Guilt is something different. God did not give us guilt. With Christ, you can be free. Everything you do is ancient. You know that, right? Everything you do is ancient. Everything you do is part of an ancient ritual. It's woven into the world society where you cannot see it. It is so normal, you cannot recognize it. Everything God hates, if you looked up what God hates, everything God hates is the number one practice on earth. Of course, they're after your soul. They're after it. Once you begin to realize this, and you put yourself back in alignment, in truth, with the Most High, right? There is no struggle with the world when you're back in alignment with the Most High. You don't have a struggle because your desire set changes. The world loses, but you become an instant target. And people are fearful of that. When you carry the word of God, not your own word, not a hybrid word, but the word of God, the world will hate you. The world will seek to destroy you when you carry the word of God. That's why it's a blessing to be noticed in such a way, because then you know what side you belong to. When everything is okay in your life, you're not stirring up the world as your friend. You're missing the word. You're probably on the wrong side. There's a compromise, a deep one somewhere. They allow these compromises so that others will be just as corrupted as you are. You know what? The Lord came and he opened our eyes just a little, and he opened our ears just a little. In fact, if you have a relationship with Christ, you know something is not quite right here on this earth. You can't put your finger on it, but you have these natural repulsions against certain things in the world. You rise up spiritually at times and you don't share that with other people. You know certain things are not right. Many people go along with things and they convince themselves, hey, I'm going along with this, and now I'm in the popular group that has gone along with it. That's why I will never take sides in politics. I will never take sides in politics. Never. I'll never do that. For the most part, people's minds can so easily change. See, politics is a way to getting good with a group. It is. Most people out there, you don't have to confirm it because there are repercussions if you confirm the truth of your real beliefs concerning politics and people in politics. But most people pick specific sides because their family did it. Most people pick specific sides because it puts them in good with a specific group. Truth be told. Because if you ever took a step back, you wouldn't be a part of either group unless it was perfectly aligned with kingdom standards. As of late, we have something different going on. We do. But is it different? We have a person, right? And you guys already know. If you don't know, right? If you guys don't know, do you guys know I did not like President Donald Trump when he came into office? Do you guys know I didn't like him? I didn't like him. I did not. No, I can't say I didn't like him. Let's just say I was not really for him. I wasn't really for nobody. How about that? Because I know what they are. I know what a politician is. I know what you have to give up to get that spot. Just anybody cannot get that spot. I'm sorry, they cannot. They can't get that spot. You're not going to go become a president unless you know certain people in this world who approve of you. Doesn't matter who you are. But something happened. Something did. It happened. Something took place. I saw something before it ever took place, and I thank God he showed me. It was right before Obama became president. Some of you guys are probably like me, right? You may have a family that comes from one party, but you don't agree with that party. You might be like me. Right? I don't go with the flow of things, even if my whole family did it. I'm not going with the flow of it. I don't go with the flow of anything just because it puts me in favor with a group or it's going to cause some, less resistance in my life or something like that. I don't do that. But before Obama was president, the Lord actually showed me what he was going to do. For Obama, large groups were complaining. We don't get what we want. That's what they were saying. Didn't they? They said, we don't get what we want. The Lord showed me what he was going to do. He put somebody in power that would represent a lot of people who said, we're not getting what we want. Things would be different if we had someone to represent us. Things would be different if we had this type person or that type person. That's what people were saying prior to Obama. I told everybody when he began to campaign, I already knew it was him. 1992. His name is still in a sealed envelope that was postmarked and put in a safety deposit box. That's just amazing to me. Because the Lord gave the world, he gave people exactly what they wanted in three ways. First, it was Obama. And when Obama came into office, everybody said, oh, yes, now we have someone. That's what they said. And the people began to stumble. They became emboldened, prideful, didn't they? And the other half of those people, the other part of those people became hateful and vicious, didn't they? Yes, they did. And when Obama was in office and everybody began to see that maybe he's not panning out, I said, oh, don't worry, because the Lord's going to give the other side exactly what they want. He's going to do it again. I called them both stumbling blocks because that's what was given to me. Not for people's demise, but to wake them up. And so then Trump came into office, and the other side said, oh, we have what we want now. The opposite side said, oh, he's an idiot. We don't like that. And hatred started spewing out of the very mouths of, see, because at first when Obama was in office, conservatives were full of hatred. And when Trump was in office, the Democrats were full of hatred. Weren't they? Huh? Anybody out there? Anybody? Both sides did the exact same thing. And in no case, in both cases, people became hatred. And in no case on either side did those people even regard the living God over their idols at that time. They didn't. See, an idol is something a person makes. If I put a hat on a rod, that hat's not an idol. It's only an idol to the person who deifies it as an idol. In other words, somebody who puts it before their creator, right? Somebody who actually looks to it first of everything they do. Both these men caused tears in the eyes of those who followed them. Do you know that? Both Trump and Obama had radical followers. Both Trump and Obama had radical enemies. We all know this. And in both cases, no one prayed. And in both cases, everybody thought they were right, and the other side was wrong. Come on now. Did that happen or not? The world was polarized by both these people. And men began to worship them. They did. And then, both had losses. And in their losses, did you notice how they blamed the other side? Then they began to sling all this illegal stuff and assign blame. No one took responsibility. The people, the citizens, did not take responsibility. The citizens did not. Families broke up over both these men. You know what? In my household, there is nothing external from my household that can ever interfere with my household. There is no external person that's going to cause the household to break The Lord exposed something, didn't he? Now, why did the Lord do that? For correction, so that we can mend the breaches before his decree comes forward, so that we could see what we were truly doing and correct it in our lives and to purge ourselves of following men. Then the prosecutions came, persecutions came, the legal troubles came. The blame was at its maximum. And then President Biden stepped into office, different from the character of both those men. Nobody idolized Biden. Nobody worshiped Biden. Nobody. Did you notice the people during that time? Confused, as though they had no leader. Correct? God put somebody in office who nobody could worship. Nobody would worship, who had problems, who was obviously going downhill quick, and everybody noticed it. And still no one took responsibility, and everybody blamed. And then it started turning. Trump began a campaign after Kamala lost, and it was a deep upset for the entire Democratic Party, and Trump began to gain ground, but something changed. It changed. The people started seeing something else. Started to. It's not quite there yet. They began to see something else. They began to see something else. I'm telling you this because I'm also tell you what's about to happen. You don't have to believe it. Just keep living. When Trump campaigned, nobody wanted Biden because everybody began to identify that something was, about to test our nation, and it caused a real fear. And people had a consensus. And Trump was voted into office. And Trump immediately began to correct things as he saw fit. But then the change started coming. Here's what the change is. While, yes, everybody has their, parties get behind their people. But in this case, people began to see America again. They did. They did. Beyond the words and the promises, beyond all of that, people started to see the situation they were in. You know, that just recently started, right? They're starting to see America again. People were so entwined. They were so wrapped up in the blame thing, they couldn't see the country anymore. And slowly but surely we were losing it. Something has just recently changed. It's an opportunity. It is. It also comes with a great warning. Not my warning. Our Father in heaven really does not like pride. He does not. Should people be lifted up by pride, even in the midst of known problems, He's going to bring us low. He did not do that yet. Not with Obama. Not with Trump's first term. He didn't bring us low. He did not. One represents a well-known establishment. Just so you guys know this. One represents an establishment, and one represents a different type of establishment. Obama represented the establishment. He did. Trump represents a different type of establishment. Both have a base, but one you have been dealing with for some time. You were. The first Trump and the second Trump are two different Trumps. They are. The first Trump, because people were vicious to him, he was vicious back. And he caused viciousness in the nation. The second Trump is a bit different. In that change, something humbling has come. Something you may or may not be able to see. But let's just say this. Something is on the president's mind heavily. Something has caused humility within the president. Something. Have you guys noticed he's become a little more humble than usual? A little different. Something is changing. Something is changing. How many of you have noticed that of President Trump? Something is changing. Right? I'll say it again. Does Trump represent the establishment that you guys are, that everybody has been seeing and wrote about, this, that, and the other? Not the establishment you used to. I must tell you, President Obama, all of those guys before him came from the establishment, just so you know. They came from the establishment. In other words, right, they have a different belief. Very different belief. Does it mean that President Trump is a saint? No, it does not. We are but men, right? And men on this earth are raised and they have different issues. All of them have issues and certain quirky beliefs. All of them do. All of them do. But the Lord never stopped working. You better believe that. Who do you think put Trump in office? Well, first of all, do you guys believe that the Lord put Trump in office the first time and this time? Do you believe that? In truth, do you believe that? Do you guys believe that? Do you guys believe that? I want an answer from this one. Before I go any further, I want an answer. Do you guys believe that God put Trump in office the first time and this time? Do you believe that? Somebody says, yes, it's biblical. Do all of you believe that? For the most part, I'd say quite a few of you believe that. That means you also know that God put Obama in office and Biden in office. Correct? That be correct also? That God put Obama and God put Biden in office? As much as you hate to put that one up there, as much as you hate to put the yes up there, isn't that the case? Okay, so because he put all of them up there, the next question is, why would God put those individuals in office? Why would God give two groups of people who rule the USA, two distinct groups of people were given a representative? Two distinct groups were given a representative as president of the United States, yet our situation was still the same. When Obama came into office, and when he left office, things were still the same. When Trump went into office and came out of office, things were still the same. Same stuff we were facing, same problem, same everything, still the same. When Biden came into office and when he left office, Same thing. We were in this moral decline. We were a moral decline. Then something happened. Now you have President Trump back in office again. I'll say something recently has happened. You don't hear him calling people nicknames anymore, do you? You don't hear that. While most people thought that was cute, I did not. When you win something, when you're appointed to a position, you never gloat over your enemies. When you see a person in trouble, you never degrade them in their trouble. You know who taught us that? The Most High did. Stay your tongues from someone in their calamitous moment. Have no opinion, lest the Lord put that same calamity upon you. The Lord is at work always. So now the people had what they wanted, yet they still had the same problems. Here in the last hours, God has sent another representative to govern the people. And this person is not the same person. He's not like he was the first time. No. This person is inclusive. This person is doing things. Maybe not everybody agrees with it. It carries some sting, right? It does. But the same person went through a process that the other one went through likewise. It's just that the other one wanted nothing to do with politics following that. Do you guys remember? I need some help here. Do you guys remember me saying? Do you remember these words? Where's Flash and those people at? Do you remember something on the lines of one of these presidents that will be appointed to the USA would have a break because they would not meet the king of the world, but they come back into power again? That was a long time ago. That they would be in power, then they would have a break and be in power again. You guys remember something similar to that? A theme? In fact, I'm pretty sure I said that they would have a break. A break. Somebody would have a break. You remember the years? Got to do your biological homework on that. You remember the years? You remember the one after Obama? I said, you got to watch out for that one, that one. You got to watch out for that one. You remember that? I spoke about a break. The other side was unwritten. The other side was unwritten. It was open. I believe because of the people. Hear me on this. Because of the people. Because when Trump was in president, and then, of course, Biden followed, listen to me. There are many people who said, well, Trump has some good strategy concerning finances, concerning business. Politics was played out. People began to recognize that we needed to fix our nation financially with good financial policies to be prosperous again. This came from all communities, didn't it? All of them. So collectively, out of what was presented to them, people selected their president from all demographics. Do you know that? The numbers of the groups who voted for Trump, in truth, is astounding. from all races within the USA. They wanted Trump because they know, right? The guy's resilient. They may not like everything about him and all this, but he's not a politician. They like that most of all. What you didn't notice was this. The Lord gave people exactly what they wanted. The first time Trump came into office, he tried to be a politician. You guys remember that? But now all you have to do is search your own truth. When a politician begins to speak, when they began to speak, you would start yawning instantly. You didn't want to hear what they had to say because you heard it before. People were burned out on politicians. And when Trump was in office the first time, he attempted to be a politician. And people didn't like that. He attempted to be presidential. And people didn't like that because he began to emulate some of the other. And it was still the same old story. So what people learned was they had grown beyond the moment where they would listen to politicians lie. Then they attempted to prosecute Trump. But at the same time, they were needing someone who could get us through a financial time as people perceived it. And from all different races, people began to select Trump again. Many people were scared, yes. They were. Many people unsure, but they still voted for it. They did. Why? Because they wanted a financial fix. That's what they wanted. That's what the world wanted, a financial fix. Follow me on this. Everybody wanted that financial fix. In fact, when Biden was in power, people stopped spending money. They quit spending money. When they heard that Trump was coming back in power, the markets, everything responded across the board. The markets responded. International communities responded. Global trade went up. All sorts of things happened. And by all rights, any president that introduces tariffs should have been a collapse and a disaster already, but it's not. I don't think most people understand the language of tariffs and how difficult that can be. You don't introduce tariffs like that. You don't do that. That would scare all markets off, but that's not what it did because they trust President Trump to sort out some financial things. Churches prayed for someone who was not immoral. They did. Remember all the immoral stuff that came up? People are part of. I think you'd be shocked to find out the involvement of people in certain practices. In fact, I think you'd be sick. But that's beyond the point. We were given a president who can resolve some of these financial things. And the trustworthiness of everybody else had failed. Nobody trusted anybody else. So now we have a representative who's doing some things that nobody else has ever done historically. Nobody has ever done this historically. But see, I need you to follow me on this, and I'll take a break. People have put a lot of stock into this president, wouldn't you say? They put a lot of trust into this president. By way of speeches and talks, people have built up the confidence behind this president. They have. And it looks like the Lord fortified this president by having him persecuted for 4 years so he could build up his strength and resiliency. A person like me, when I see a person persecuted for 4 years, and yet they still stand, that represents a lot. If I don't see a person go through anything, and it doesn't necessarily translate to strength. But when you see a person under duress, and yet they still care for this country, because that's the message that came out, then you start to see something you did not see before. I was one of those who did not like Trump when he first came out. To be honest with you, I didn't like Obama either. I didn't. I didn't favor either one. And I did not favor Biden. I didn't. That's my position. But when the changes started coming, right? And when President Trump still talked about the country, he confirmed a few things. He has a vision of this nation. He also has a high appreciation of this nation. Very high appreciation. He may not agree with all of his past or all of what he did, but he has a high appreciation for the nation. Him having children has altered his life. It totally altered his life. So, yes, he cares about the nation. And he's made some deep sacrifices concerning this nation. That also made it real for me, right? I know about sacrifices, especially the sacrifices that people don't know about. Now, he's still a man, but the world, listen to me, the world has invested a lot in him. People have invested a lot of trust in the president. A lot. Because I know that's true. Because people are walking around with a different type of confidence. And despite tactics and because things that are happening like in D.C., that was not his idea. That came from an advisement. And it's very simple, but they're making it out to be something bigger than it really is, right? But in the same voice, you guys do realize how many guns have been collected in Washington, D.C., right? Don't, he's not just going around taking everybody's guns. That's not what that's for. He's doing something nobody else really had the wherewithal to do. All these people who would do harm to others because he cares for this nation. He's cleaning that up, is what he's doing. It's very simple, right? Something that nobody else ever wanted to do. If a person has a felony, they cannot have firearms. If a person has a tendency towards violence, they cannot have firearms. That can never happen any other way but it's happening with President Trump. Now listen, when it was proposed to go door to door to do that, everybody said, no, they're going to take your guns away. And yes, I have to bring out this point. Because when the Democrats came up with an idea like that, nobody trusted them to do it. They said, oh no, you can never do that. Now it's being done. It's being accomplished. Because of a trust that nobody else has ever had. There's been no trust like this since Reagan, really. Since Reagan or FDR, I'll say FDR. Because FDR, he really crossed some lines that nobody else has ever crossed. He still had the trust of people. He did, for the most part. And that was a war president. All right, so anyway, President Trump sees that this nation is out of control. Crime is out of control. All of us know. In his first presidency, he said he was the top police officer, right? Remember that? So we know where his mind is. He wants to clean up crime. And anybody who's been near D.C., despite what they're saying on television, I can't believe they sat there on television saying that D.C. is this friendly place. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it is not. There's crime all over the USA. President Trump's at the forefront attempting to tackle this problem. But the issue is still this. People have invested a lot in him. That means if any story surfaces that puts President Trump in a negative light, if any story surfaces and it does that, all those in opposition to him are going to parade that story. Hear me on this. They're going to parade it until it gets out of proportion to what it actually is. Then they're going to cause a legal issue in this nation we've not had before. Confidence. At that moment, confidence is going to be broken. Folks, I hope you're listening to me. Confidence is going to be broken. And when the confidence is broken, then that person will not be safeguarded like they naturally are right now. Do you guys see what that means? When you invest a lot in a person, and you're not really thinking, people grow, right? When you're young, you do dumb things, and when you get older, your life changes. Correct? There's going to be an association. When that association comes out, we're going to have a problem in this nation. For a moment, we're going to have a problem. The problem is purposed. The outcome is probably beyond all of your expectations. And it's on its way. Lord have mercy. Okay, let me take a break. I'll be back in a few minutes to gently explain this and then move on with the conversation. These things are not, you know why these things are not easy to talk about? Because politics, when we start talking about people like that, right? It's not easy to talk about, but don't assume until I name things. Don't assume. If you assume you're going to be wrong, as normally when people are wrong, they'll assume and then I take a different direction, right? Because again, I'll tell you, just like I was talking about, it was purpose. God put people in office on purpose. Then you better believe that everything happening right now is on purpose. Now, God doesn't do anything to destroy you because the world seeks to corrupt your souls. God is not doing anything against you. Whatever you see the Lord doing is going to be for you. Let's just say we're at a stalemate. Everything is stuck right now. And in this moment that we live in right now, we need a Joshua. Not to go kill all the enemies, but we need a Joshua to kill all the enemies. The spiritual enemies. For a small season, for the sake of the saints. Because the believers, they had better be believers before the decree go forward. Do you think God wants somebody halfway believing? Do you think the Lord wants any of us in confusion? The Lord desires us to have a full resolve before his decree come forward. The children, you must be secure within Christ before anything pours out into the earth. That's how our Father works. Just like the ark and Noah. Noah was secured within the ark with all the animals and parts of his family before the flood came. You are to be secured also, but keep in mind, it began to rain. The same time the door was shutting. The Lord is in the process of doing something good for us. And in the end, it's not going to matter what you thought about a president or what you thought or did not think about a president. It's going to matter that you believe. And if something is interfering with your belief, you better believe your Father in heaven is going to have that worked out. He's going to help your unbelief. He's going to utilize his creation for your unbelief. And once you are secured, then and only then will his judgments pour out upon this earth. His decree will come forward. His indignation will be satisfied. But you have to be secured. God is no respecter of persons. He is no respecter of persons. This is his creation. It's important that we, Christians, are true believers. I'll be right back in just a few minutes right here at the Council of Time. Let's not get all spooky. Okay, back to our conversation. I want you guys to see this situation. Why? Because you're part of a solution for a great many people, believe it or not. In fact, I believe that all believers are part of a solution. You just have to be prepared not to be surprised. Right? Interest in President Trump. Correct? So if, of course, in today's world, when somebody comes out with somebody's past, and I hope you guys really understand this. You guys have people you know. When the past of someone you know is revealed, and there could be some things in the past that are not necessarily groundbreaking, but not moral either. It puts that person in question. And what that means is, if you trust a person right now today, the thing you learn about their past, say you were friends you knew the person for 20 years, but you did not know all of their past. Then you learn something about their past. It can put your relationship in jeopardy. Right? That's the normal way people are going to see it. It can actually break their trust to people. It can cause people to betray people. Right? But what about you? What about you all? Would you be a voice to back up? To cause someone's character to come in question because of something new you learned about their past and throw away everything established of that person? Or would you be a person of understanding, realizing that people change? The person you speak to today is not the person you knew in the past. Because the world is not so forgiving. Enemies, especially in politics, are not forgiving. They're not forgiving. Should they learn anything about a person's past, they will utilize it to mutilate a person in public. It's also going to cause a lot of people who live by the standards of this world. It can cause people to be heartbroken. the church, you all, what will your position be? Because see, we already know that at some point, somebody will find something. We already know that. And they will use it to derail anything they don't like. We already know that. And during this time where things are being established and fixed, corrected, and where the church is actually being favored, Satan is an enemy of anybody who would ever favor the church. You know that, right? Satan waits. And think of your households. Satan waits until you're doing well, until you've accomplished some things. Then he strikes. Satan will never strike. He'll never strike before something is built. He's always going to strike after it's built to maximize the damage. That's how he works. That's his modus operandi. In the fallout, he always desires to achieve maximum confusion. And his end result is to cause people to be murderers of people. He wants people guilty. Now, if you can see with your clear eyes what's happening in this world, there are many accomplishments. Many things are being done that nobody else has ever done before, and you know and I know it's in the pattern of Satan right before he strikes. And it's always during the time of the greatest achievements, he does so to maximize his strike. You have the power to interrupt that. Story. But to be vessels of the Lord's truth. You have that power. Can it stop the entire process from derailing? It may not, but it will offer an avenue that a soul may not be lost from the fallout. Because, ladies and gentlemen, please hear me on this. You do understand that things are fragile. That if anybody gets ammunition to derail what's happening right now in America, they're going to use it. Satan will inspire a person to use that during a great achievement. And if that happens now, this world is in danger. Peace will collapse across the board. Power structures will change. The enemies of the U.S. will take full advantage of the confusion. Then people will have their carnage. But and if somebody would have the boldness to carry the Lord's principles, his principles that he gave us in the New Testament, to have that message that everybody changes, that nobody stays the same, that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, that all of us at one point or another have been deemed unworthy of anything, but that through Christ we can be clean again, and only through him. That's going to help some of the populace understand that they can take a position that's not given to them by those who seek to harm the steps forward that are being taken. That's your position. For a long time, the church has not really performed. Would you guys agree? For a long time, the church has been the church, but that's it. It's been a place you go to. It's been a place for repair. But as far as the church interceding for the world, no. As far as the church standing up for a value system given to them by the Almighty God to put into the minds of everybody, no. The church has been quiet. I do not believe the Lord has had us gain wisdom just so we can make it. I believe the church exists in this world to make a difference. That's what I believe. And as a believer in Christ, I do not expect the world to have the answers. They think they do. But it has never worked. We've had progressions. Yes, we have. But do you all understand that we face the same issues year after year after year and nobody has solved? And we've become more immoral now than ever before. We have technology, yet people labor twice as much. We have computers, and nobody has time for their own families. Well, as far as the world having an answer for things, no. Causing confinement to become greater. Right before the decree goes forward, we know by reading in Revelation there are going to be a great many sorrows that will come upon the face of the earth, even worse than they are now. That does not mean we have to be complicit with falling souls, with people who fall away from the faith. We know that time is coming. But at one point, do our voices go out to really make a difference for everyone, not just our favorite person? At one, I mean fighting that another person can have the opportunities we had. Last night when I was talking, I didn't get to finish my thought, the full thought. God always warns his people before the decree go forward. But God chooses to work through us. He could do it all himself, but he put us here on this earth. And if you read in the Bible, you read about prophets, you read about people, you read about apostles who have been laboring in the earth with the word of God for the sake of mankind. He could come down and do it himself. He could do it himself without coming down. But he chose us to work through. That means you. See, for the world, the voice of the Lord is going to come through you. Just as we read in the Bible the writings that men wrote of the acts that took place so long ago, of the words of the prophet. Many in this world, the voice of the Lord, the only voice they're going to hear is yours. The only instruction coming from you or what you validate. You are a representative, an ambassador to Christ. Listen, not an ambassador to the kingdom so much, but an ambassador to Christ. And what that means is you walk around in the stead or the place of Christ to speak what he would have spoken to a person. They may be disconnected from the Spirit, but they can hear and see you. Correct? You're an ambassador to Christ. You carry his gospel, his message. To those who walk out in that capacity, those are the ones who will exercise his authorities in the earth. It shouldn't be a mystery now that God does things as they're needed. So as you need food, God will supply. As you need things, God will supply. He's not going to give you an inventory so that you have assurances it's there. As things are needed, as you obey the Lord, you're going to find he supplies them. His authority, miracles for your life, as you walk in the path he has designated just for you, you'll notice he will equip you every step of the way as needed. I say this because a lot of people say, well, I'm not equipped. I'm not equipped to go and tell this person this or go tell that person that or to do this. You will be equipped as you need it. See, with the Lord, it's like going to eat a meal, but nobody has silverware, right? You sit down, the meal is put before you. Let's say it's a pretty tough steak. Well, guess what? Because you were served a tough steak, you're going to have a knife that will actually be able to go through that tough steak. It'll be right there. Now, another one, a believer, sits right beside you. And their steak is not tough, it is soft. They pull out their knife and it's different from yours. Still another. They get a different grade of steak. Theirs is falling apart, so all they need is a fork, no knife. As you need, God will equip. As you need. Just like it says in the Bible, he'll supply all of your needs according to his riches and glory. Which means there's no limit to what he can give you. But as you need, not as you want it, but as you need it, and that need is based on his determination, not ours. God deals in truth. So as you truthfully, as you really need something, you'll have it. It'll be made available. Don't worry about the method. Leave that up to the Father. Don't worry about how he does it. Just understand that you'll have it. And if you look carefully over the course of your life, you're going to see that very pattern. As you really needed things, not as you wanted them. Because a lot of us want comfort when we get into trouble. We want reassurances. He does not give that, does he? But some here. You got through. That's why I always tell people God seems to show up at the last minute of the last hour. Not at the beginning, not at the middle, but at the last moment. Why would he ever do that? Because when you actually need something, it's not at the beginning of an issue. It's normally at the very end. Plus, God does not want us to waste our time on worry. And if you're delivered all those times, you shouldn't waste your time with worry. But you're ambassadors to Christ and will be equipped as you need. But see, we're coming up on a time when the world is going to be different. It's going to be very different. You're going to matter. Things of the world are not going to make sense. They're not. Nothing will happen in the world the way the world dictates it will happen. It's not going to happen that way. The Father has already disclosed to us exactly what he's going to do. In fact, prophecy is not foretelling of a future. Prophecy is telling us what God has determined to do. He's telling us exactly what he will do. It's not some guess. It's not some psychic letter. And it's not wishful thinking. It is precisely what God will do. And he told us about that. We're at the door of a change that will affect us all. We've already had changes. But the change is going to get all of our collective attention. You have an opportunity to make a difference this time before the serpent strikes. My question to you today, I wanted you guys to see the situation that we're in right now. To know that there are many people who have a vested interest in our standing president. To know that he is not the same person he was a long time ago. He is not. And to know that he has enemies who will utilize anything to derail what he's doing. They don't care about the instability it will cause in foreign relations, in cities and towns, financially. They don't care so long as they win. His enemies are like that. This is not about the worship of a person. This is about realizing that God has appointed us many different leaders. That this time, there's something clearly different. Clearly. The Lord's always been on task. He's always been working. This time is different than all the others. In fact, the time we live in, as far as morals is concerned, cannot be compared to any other time in history. And you know what the Lord said? I need to remind you guys about this. Remember when Jesus said, a time is coming, and there is no comparison with the times of old. Do you know that? He said there was no other time like it before, since the earth was, nor will be after that. That means what we're about to go through, no one has ever lived through. No one has ever experienced. There is no comparison with the past. There is no comparison with any idea of the future. It is going to be different than anything. There's been no other time like it on the face of the earth since the earth was created. So nobody can clearly give you some example of what this time is going to be like except the Messiah. And he equipped us with the right mindset and with the right heart to be in during this time. He conveyed the seriousness of this time. He did. Now you have that. Hopefully you can see that outlook, these things that have been laid out. Hopefully you can see your importance. The importance of you staying steadfast in what the Lord called you in. The importance of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Never let any person nor any spirit nor anything minimize that in your life. This time comes about, we'll all know it. There will be fallout. There will be. It's also our opportunity to be that voice of reason, because this time will also is going to make solid the relationship that many have with Christ. It will. It'll be a wake-up call for many. Be ready to stay on course. Don't become derailed yourself. Understand the situation and what will surely come to pass. All right. Now, somebody has a repeating question in COT. Somebody says, how did you find your calling? I didn't find it. I had an answering machine. That was a joke. No, the calling in my life, since I was a little small guy, right? I noticed I had an inclination towards some things of the Lord since I was small. Most people do. And I noticed that every time the Lord showed me a few scenarios, right? And I told you guys that there was one particular time and I labored and sacrificed much. Somebody was presented something from that sacrifice and from those labors, and it fulfilled that person. It really helped that person. The person never knew it was me. They didn't know where it came from, but they were so thankful, and it made a huge difference. And at that moment, when I received that feedback, I knew what I was here for. I knew what I was here for. See, you're made for your calling. You are specifically made for your calling. You'll never get tired of your calling. You're anointed to do what the Lord called you to do. Have you ever wondered how people can keep going in certain things? And you're like, how can this person continue to do that? Through opposition, through unfavorable conditions, when things look like, nothing is going forward, these people never tire in whatever they're doing. They have a calling on their lives. If you're anointed or blessed to do your calling, right? You'll do it with a passion that nobody understands. And when everybody else would burn out and give up, you're going to continue to keep going because you're made for that calling. You have a natural inclination towards that calling. It's not a matter of finding it, I don't think. It's when we step into that realm of truth with the Lord and begin to realize what He's already given us. But thankful of the truth He's given us. When we reflect, not trying to be like somebody else, but trying to authentically be of servitude to others. That's when you find it. You find it when you're sincere. And that's when you'll identify it. I would go so far as to say many of you already know it. Just can't quite bring yourself to it yet. All right. Somebody had something else. Somebody had something else in here. Somebody said, somebody ask that question again, please. That question you've been asking the entire broadcast. Where is it at? I want to go back here and find it. That question. Oh, no, then they said, I'm confused about the idea that Satan controls the kingdoms of the earth. Let's go back. They had another comment with that. Let's see. Where's it at? Okay, wait a minute. If you could put that up there again, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, Satan controls the kingdoms of the earth. Jesus' temptation had to be authentic. How does Satan rule the kingdoms if God decides the leaders? Because you're involved. That's why. God's not going to have Satan be appointed over your life. God's appointed over your life himself. So because it has to do with you. Yes. That's why he said submit yourselves to authority. A lot of people think that means to lay down and just simply obey everything man says. It's not what that means. When he said submit yourselves to earthly authority, he told us that was clarified in the Bible because he's involved when it comes to you. When it comes to you, he is involved. When it comes to you, he's involved in a president's life. When it comes to you, he's involved in the magistrate's life. When it comes to you, he's involved in all these, positions. He's involved. But who's ruling these kingdoms? Who's ruling them? Satan is. Sometimes people believe that Satan somehow has more power than the living God. No, he didn't. God can undo Satan in a split second. Why does he allow Satan to stay around? Because he already knew Satan was going to fall. But why is he around? It's because of us. Because God does everything in truth and God does no evil, right? But we have to have a choice between good and evil. Then wouldn't he put the opposite, nearly the opposite of himself here on this earth so that you can choose? I do not believe God was even moved by the fall of Satan. I do not believe God was moved by the falling of the fallen angels. I do not believe that because I can see God uses all of his creation for the children, for you. He put a wolf outside of the fence so that when you're young and you hear that growl, you stay away from the fence. But when you get older, you learn the importance of that fence. See, if there is no fence, sheep have a bad habit of wandering everywhere and they would never be together. In fact, isn't it the wolf that keeps the sheep together? So then isn't it the wolf that preserves the families of the sheep? Yes. Predators in the wild keep groups of animals together. Do you know that? Without the predators, prairie dogs would separate, wouldn't they? Families, mothers would abandon their children. Because of predators, these little baby rabbits and everything else become the most important objective for the parent. In fact, in this world, because of crime, you stay close to your babies. Because of crime, you guys protect women. Because of crime, you're looking out for someone. Aren't you? Yes, you are. So that's a piece of it if you can see it. God knows exactly what he's doing. He's doing all this is for us. Because if he's going to give us a choice between good and evil, it has to actually be a choice. It can't be manipulated. So he has to present to us darkness and light in equal measure. He isn't presenting us light and dark to where we have no choice but to choose the light or no choice but to choose the darkness. We're seeing it in equal measure. We truly have a choice. That choice must be free because if it's a choice is made in the freedom of the individual. And if it's a real choice given by the Almighty, then it has to be a truthful choice with truthful conditions. God's not controlling us. That's not what he's doing. Even though many of us have said, Lord, remove my will that I won't sin again. I did that too. I asked the Lord one time to remove my will to do anything iniquitous so that I would not be unpleasing to him. I did. Every way I knew how to pray, and it never came. Because it must remain a choice, a free choice of us. It must be that way. And some of you guys are broken early in your life. right? As an advantage, not a disadvantage. Things have begun, folks. They have. They have begun. They have begun. We have some structure. Yeah, we can do that after some structured topics coming up there, Sister Mayor. Structured in this way. Here's some of the structured sessions are for this reason. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys and let you guys know before you read it. But we live in a time where everybody is somewhat meticulous as far as data is concerned, right? So because the world is speaking the language of data, we're going to have to come forward with data. Very structured studies. No off-the-hip things. Can't be off the hip. Has to be very structured. For the sake of the world to remember something, we believe, yes, so we can encourage each other. But there are those in the world who are not there yet. And the Lord has given us the ability, the skill set, to reach some of those folks. And we have to employ 100% of ourselves to actually reach them. That's the condition. And so it's going, because the world speaks a language of data, right? Data, and everybody has become their own intellectual individual, right? We're going to have to come forward with some very detailed studies. I'm going to give you an example. Suppose we have a study about the beginning or something like that. Somebody asks one of those questions, like where'd the rest of the people come from? If Cain was driven out into the world, how could it be populated if it was just Adam and Eve? Right? We have to have an answer. There is an answer. We have to do our due diligence to bring these things forward in the simplest of forms. And it has to be bound in truth, not theory or anything else, right? We want to have that by the truth so that the people have clarity. I went to a few churches, and it was similar to this. Imagine going to a beautiful restaurant. They set out these beautiful plates with beautiful cups and beautiful silverware, and everything is beautiful. But they never served the meal. Well, I went to a few churches, and it was just like that. No meal was served. Nothing could be utilized for a walk in life. Everything was some sort of comparison, redirects, and things like that. Nothing was clear. It was a time when I used to hear ministers say, you have to be saved. But for some reason, they didn't tell people what that meant. They assumed people knew. They assumed they knew that just wasn't good. And sometimes we assume people know. Ladies, how many of you get upset with somebody else because you say, well, they should know that. I shouldn't have to tell them that. That's what you say, right? They should know that. Right? That's assumption. That's no good. Men are not mind readers. They're not. I have siblings and my cousin, right? I have some cousins out there. And one of them asked me, they said, well, how many times do I have to continue to tell the children the same thing over and over? I said, as many times as it takes. Well, they should know that by now. No, they shouldn't. They can hear you, but they can't hear you. As many times as it takes, say the same thing over and over and over again, because if you don't, you're going to build up with frustration, and the wrong thing's going to come out at the wrong time, which is not healthy for the children. Be consistent, right? We're going to have to do the same thing with the world. We can't give room for assumption, and in so doing, we clarify many things for ourselves, right? One of the tasks of undertaking is called the whole story. The whole story. And what the whole story is, it is from Genesis to Revelation. It is the entire Bible, right? Major themes of the Bible to give a common understanding of it in a very consistent way. there are so many people I've met and they don't understand some of the themes and complex themes in the Bible and what this really need to be acquainted with, right? They don't know it. So I went back through the Bible, not by memory, but I went back through the Bible and I'm writing a summary. It's called The Whole Story, from the beginning of Revelation or the beginning of Genesis to the very end. To give it, I mean, it's in the simplest of forms to give a person a good overall overview of every single book in the Bible and what happened in those books, every single chapter, every single verse. That way when they have that basic understanding, right? Then they can reference the Bible for greater detail, correct? But when a person does not know the overall whole theme of the Bible, and by the way, we're in a time now where we can really do that, so that a person can utilize the vast wisdom in the Word of God. A lot of people during this day and age, they hear these different interpretations of the Word of God. They don't know what to believe, and they get discouraged in reading. One of my biggest points here in COT is that everybody should read the Word for themselves. Not take somebody's word for it. No. A person can complement the truth in you. But a person is not the choice, not the source of truth. I can complement the word in you. You can complement the word in me. But God is our source of truth. I'm not your source of truth. I'm your fellow man. I'm your fellow servant. I am not your source of truth. And plus, when I know you can go to the source of truth, then I feel okay. I'm never going to feel okay if you keep coming to me. I'm going to feel okay when you go directly to the Lord. That's one. Also, there's something else. There's something else. There's some graphs. Charts, I'll say some charts I've put together in a large format way, right? Where you can actually see modules. Now, I don't want to give the whole thing away, but just imagine if you could see the biblical order of things in picture format. That will open your eyes. And just in case you don't know, here it is. When I first read the entire Bible, it really opened my eyes to a major theme in the Word of God. And then I read the whole thing again. To date, I've read the whole Bible 7 times. Or 8 times. I'm in the 9th right now. Well, I'm doing the whole story. I'm telling you right now, every time I read the entirety of the Word of God, number one, it never gets old, right? Number 2, you understand this large theme. A large theme in the Bible. The reason you're